Welcome back to Haunt Narratives. Tonight we're going to take a deep dive into a Christmas Eve that turned into a night of just unimaginable horror.
Yeah, it's one of those stories that really gets under your skin, you know? Like it takes that warmth and that whole idea of family unity during the holidays and twists it into something really, really dark.
Yeah, it's like a total perversion of the season,
Yeah.
And it's made even more disturbing by the way the perpetrator was dressed. I mean, can you imagine a Santa suit?
Yeah, like straight out of a horror movie, right? It's like this terrifying distortion of everything Christmas is supposed to represent.
This happened in Covina, California. Christmas Eve 2008.
Right.
It was late, around 11:30 p.m. when the perpetrator, Bruce Pardo, he arrived at his former in-law's house.
And here's where it gets even darker, right? It was his 8-year-old niece who answered the door.
Oh,
Can you imagine that? A little kid, all excited for Christmas Eve, opens the door to who she thinks is Santa Claus and is met with a gun.
it's bone-chilling,
Yeah.
that a child had to face that kind of violence.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Pardo, he doesn't hesitate. He opens fire on the party guests, just starts shooting.
The house, I mean, think about it. This house filled with laughter and celebration just instantly turns into this scene of chaos and terror. But, Pardo didn't stop there. He brought a homemade flamethrower with him.
A flamethrower?
Yeah, a converted air compressor that sprayed racing fuel.
Oh, my God.
So you can imagine, like, the force of the explosion, right? The house was engulfed in flames. People were trapped.
It's hard to even imagine the terror that those people must have felt.
Absolutely.
9 members of the family died that night.
Yeah, it's a staggering loss of life. A whole family just wiped out in a single act of violence. And as investigators started to piece together what happened, what led up to this massacre, it became clear that this wasn't just some random act of rage. This was planned.
So there was more to it than just like a sudden outburst?
Oh, yeah, way more. Pardo had orchestrated every detail. He had thought about his escape route. He had rented multiple vehicles. Yeah, multiple. One of them was found parked near his ex-wife's divorce attorney's house.
Oh, wow.
It was packed with supplies. I mean, maps, food, ammunition. It looked like he was preparing for a long trip.
So it sounds like he was planning to disappear after the attack. Did they ever figure out where he was going?
Well, the supplies and maps, they all pointed towards the southwest.
Okay.
Maybe even Mexico. But there was something else, too. They found a plane ticket booked for Christmas morning from Los Angeles to Moline, Illinois.
Really?
So, it seems like his plan might have had multiple layers. Maybe a way to evade capture in the short term, and then a longer-term escape route.
Wow. So he had it all figured out, like he was trying to erase himself completely, huh? Did he have any money on him?
Yeah, he did. They found cash strapped to his body, so clearly he was ready to run.
It's like he wanted to just disappear into thin air.
But there was a flaw in his plan.
Oh.
A pretty big one, actually. It was a flaw caused by the chaos he created.
What do you mean?
The fire, the one he started to trap his victims, ended up becoming his own downfall.
How so?
The explosion left him with severe third-degree burns. It made it really hard for him to escape like he planned.
Wow, so the fire he used as a weapon ended up turning against him.
Exactly. In the end, they found his body at his brother's house. He had died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Even with his meticulously planned escape, he couldn't outrun what he had done. The inferno he created consumed not only his victims, but also, in a way, himself.
It's a grim ending to a horrific story. But the discoveries they made at the brother's house and later at Pardo's own home, those really painted a much more disturbing picture of this man.
Oh, absolutely. Inside the rental car parked near the brother's house, they found the Santa suit, the remains of it anyway.
Okay.
But here's the thing. It was booby-trapped. It was rigged to ignite and detonate 200 rounds of ammunition if anyone tried to move it.
A booby-trapped Santa suit. I mean, that's insane.
It is. It's a chilling detail that shows you how deep his malice ran. This wasn't just a crime of passion. This was a calculated act of revenge. The level of hatred to go to those lengths is hard to comprehend,
So what about his own home? What did they find there?
His home in Montrose was like stepping into some kind of madman's workshop. There were empty boxes for semi-automatic handguns and shotguns everywhere. They found a container for high-octane fuel.
Oh, wow.
It hinted at plans for, even bigger, more devastating explosions. The authorities described it as a, quote-unquote, virtual bomb-making factory. Clearly, this massacre was just the beginning. It was a glimpse into something much darker and more sinister that thankfully he never had the chance to carry out.
It's just unimaginable, the level of planning, the cold-heartedness of it all. It's like something out of a nightmare.
It really is. But it makes you wonder, what drove this seemingly ordinary guy to such extremes? What could possibly push someone to commit an act of violence like this, especially on a night that's supposed to be about peace and goodwill?
It's hard to wrap your head around that kind of darkness, especially during a time when we're supposed to be thinking about family and forgiveness, right?
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, was there anything in Pardo's past, anything at all, that could have hinted at this kind of violence?
Well, on the surface, Pardo seemed like a pretty average guy. He was an electrical engineer. I mean, not exactly a profession you'd associate with mass murder. He met Sylvia Ortega back in 2004, and they got married in 2006.
Okay.
But, beneath that veneer of normalcy, their relationship was anything but.
So there were problems right from the start.
Yeah, from what we know, their marriage was full of problems, especially when it came to money. Pardo refused to open a joint bank account with Sylvia. He expected her to basically carry the financial burden of raising her 3 kids from a previous relationship.
Wow.
And there were even rumors that he might have been hiding a child of his own from a previous relationship. Wow. So, yeah, you can imagine the level of secrecy and potential for conflict that was already brewing in their marriage.
That's a lot of baggage to bring into a relationship.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So it sounds like there was a lot of distrust and resentment building up between them. Did all of that contribute to their divorce?
Oh, absolutely. The financial strain, the lack of transparency, all the resentment, it all just kind of snowballed, Mm-hmm. And eventually they decided to split up. But the divorce proceedings, well, those just made everything worse.
So instead of offering them a clean break, it just became another battleground for them.
Pretty much. Things got really ugly really fast.
Thought so.
Well, Pardo was ordered by the court to pay spousal support to Sylvia, but then shortly after that, he lost his job for billing false hours.
Oof.
Yeah, so now he's hit with this financial setback, and it just fueled his resentment even more. He became really bitter about the divorce settlement, constantly complaining about Sylvia's spending habits, accusing her of taking advantage of him.
So you've got the financial pressure, the bitterness of the divorce. It's like a perfect storm brewing inside him.
Exactly. And to make matters worse, the divorce was finalized just 1 week before the massacre.
Wow.
So it seems like that legal confirmation, like the finality of it all, just pushed him over the edge.
It's a chilling reminder of how quickly things can spiral out of control, how an ordinary life can turn into something so dark.
It really is.
We've talked a lot about Pardo, but we should take a moment to remember the victims.
Of course, absolutely.
Their lives were tragically cut short that night. I mean, they weren't just collateral damage in Pardo's twisted revenge plot. They were people with their own stories, their own families, who were left devastated by their loss.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We can't forget about them.
Can you tell us a little bit more about them? Who were these people?
Well, among the victims was Pardo's ex-wife, Sylvia Ortega Pardo. She was only 43 years old. Her parents, Alicia Sotomayor Ortega and Joseph S. Ortega, were also killed. They were 70 and 79. They were just enjoying a family gathering, celebrating the holidays with their children and grandchildren.
Unimaginable.
It's just horrifying to think about what they must have gone through.
Were there any other victims?
Sadly, yes. Sylvia's brother, Charles Ortega, who was 50, and his wife, Sherry Lynn Ortega, 45, were also killed. Another brother, James Ortega, 52, and his wife, Teresa, also 52, were among the victims. And then one of Sylvia's sisters, Alicia Ortega Ortiz, who was 46, and her 17-year-old son, Michael Andre Ortiz, they also lost their lives that night.
A 17-year-old boy caught in the middle of all of this. It's a stark reminder of how indiscriminate violence can be. It just tears through families, leaving so much pain behind.
Absolutely. I mean, these were people from all walks of life, different generations brought together by family and the spirit of the holidays. And in an instant, their lives were just snuffed out by this senseless violence.
It's a sobering thought, It really makes you think about the fragility of life and the devastating consequences of anger and resentment. The Covina Massacre wasn't just about one man's revenge. It was about the ripple effect of that violence, all the lives that were forever changed by that night.
That's a really good point. The impact of this event went far beyond those who were directly involved. The survivors, the friends, the neighbors, the entire community, they were all left to deal with the trauma and the fear.
Yeah, trauma that can stick with you for years.
Absolutely. And the fact that this happened on Christmas Eve, a night that's supposed to be about love, family, and hope, it just adds another layer of horror and disbelief to it all.
Like the very idea of the holiday season was shattered that night.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
As we dig deeper into this case, I keep coming back to this question. Was there anything that could have been done to stop this? Were there any signs that were missed? Any chances to intervene that could have saved those lives?
Yeah, it's the question that always comes up in cases like this. Could anyone have seen this coming? Was there anything that could have stopped it?
Well, it's easy to look back now and point to all the warning signs. The financial problems, the bitterness, all the planning, It's clear he was consumed by rage. But seeing those signs in real time and knowing how to intervene, that's a whole different story. It's like trying to predict an earthquake. You know there's pressure building, but you never know when it's going to hit.
Exactly. And Pardo was really good at hiding things. He presented this normal, everyday facade to everyone. Even the people closest to him might not have realized how angry he was, how far he was willing to go.
So even knowing what we know now, it's hard to say if this could have been prevented. It's scary to think that kind of darkness can be hidden inside someone you might think you know until it explodes into something like this.
It really is. And it shows that evil doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it hides in plain sight, disguised as something ordinary. Maybe that's the scariest part of it all. Anyone, even someone we think we know, could be capable of this.
Yeah, it makes you think. It's a reminder that you can never really know what's going on inside someone else's head. The Covina Massacre really shows the destructive power of resentment, how fragile life is, and how important it is to be aware and try to understand those around us. It's a story that forces us to look at the darkness in the world and ask ourselves, what would we do if we thought someone we knew was capable of this kind of violence? How can we be more vigilant, more proactive, and maybe even prevent something like this from happening again?
You've hit the nail on the head. Those are questions we should all be asking ourselves because understanding the darkness is the first step in stopping it. Awareness, understanding, and early intervention are key to preventing these kinds of tragedies.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the Covina Massacre. If you enjoyed this episode of Haunt Narratives, please like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment. And remember, stay vigilant, stay informed, and stay safe out there.